What happens when a disguised boss enters his own store and stops suddenly after hearing what the cashier says? Mark Evans was not an ordinary CEO. At 45 years old, he was the proud founder of Evans Mart, a convenience store chain that had grown significantly over the past 10 years. His journey began with a single small store that he ran alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Through dedication and hard work, Evans Mart became a well-known brand, turning into a successful franchise with dozens of stores spread across the region. But as the business grew, Mark began to feel more and more disconnected from the day-to-day operations of the stores. He could no longer see the true pulse of the company just through reports and spreadsheets. What really worried him was the question that lingered in his mind: were his employees happy? Were they engaged? Was the vision of customer service excellence he had created still alive in the stores he had worked so hard to build? Mark often wondered if CEOs truly understood what happened at the operational level of their companies. How could one stay connected to the heart of the business as it grew so quickly? And if employees didn't feel valued? What if, despite all his efforts, the company's values were slipping away? Do you think CEOs really know what happens in the daily lives of their companies? How would you feel if you discovered your boss was disguised among the employees, silently observing everything? These questions kept swirling in Mark's mind, and one day he decided to take drastic action. Instead of just trusting the reports and updates he would see for himself. In a bold move, Mark decided to disguise himself as an ordinary worker and visit one of his stores without prior notice. He chose the third store he had opened, located in a busy urban neighborhood. It was one of the most successful stores in his chain, and he was eager to see how things were functioning. He wanted to feel the atmosphere of the store, see the interactions between customers and employees, and understand if the values he had built for the company were still intact. On the morning of his visit, Mark dressed simply: old jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap to hide his identity. His hair was a bit messy, and he let his beard grow in a scruffy way to ensure no one would recognize him. He wanted to blend in, to become just another face in the crowd. When he entered the store, the atmosphere was already lively. Customers were browsing the aisles, employees were organizing the shelves, and there was a light buzz filling the air. Mark observed everything closely, making mental notes about the store's environment, the behavior of employees, and how customers interacted with the staff. After a few minutes, he introduced himself to the store manager, Joe, as Mike, a temporary worker sent by the headquarters to help with stock and organization. Joe, a middle-aged man with a warm and welcoming smile, immediately accepted him and quickly put him to work organizing the shelves at the front of the store. Mark made sure to keep up his disguise, pretending to be just another employee, although his real mission was to observe, listen, and learn. It didn't take long for Mark to notice the cashier, a young man named Ryan. Ryan was in his early 20s, with a natural charm and an easy smile that made him approachable to everyone. He greeted each customer with enthusiasm and familiarity, remembering their names and asking about their families. Mark couldn't help but notice how Ryan connected with people in such a simple and genuine way. He made everyone feel seen, even if it was for just a brief moment. Mark was impressed by Ryan's ability to engage with people, but then something unusual happened that caught his attention. While Mark was organizing some boxes near the counter, he overheard a conversation between Ryan and a customer. The customer, an elderly man wearing a worn-out coat, was buying a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. Ryan looked at the man and said, "Don't worry about the price today, it's on me." The elderly man seemed surprised and hesitated, clearly concerned about the implications of such a generous gesture. He wondered if Ryan might get into trouble, but Ryan reassured him with a gentle smile. The man silently thanked him and left the store, his burden momentarily lifted. Mark was stunned. His eyes widened in disbelief. Why would a cashier pay for a customer's purchases out of his own pocket? He had never imagined witnessing something like this in his own store. Mark's mind raced as he tried to process what he had just seen. He continued to watch Ryan as he interacted with other customers. Over the next few hours, Mark saw more of the same. Ryan discreetly helped several struggling customers, covering small bills, offering discounts, or even putting extra items in bags without charging them. When the shift ended, Mark couldn't contain his curiosity any longer and approached Ryan in the break room, still pretending to be Mike, the temporary worker. He asked Ryan about his generosity and why he had paid for the elderly man's groceries. Ryan, without hesitation, explained that he had grown up in a tough neighborhood and knew from experience how hard life could be. He had seen many of the regular customers struggling, and he wanted to do what he could to ease their burdens, even if just for a moment. The elderly man had recently lost his wife and was barely able to pay his bills. The single father, Mark, had heard him help earlier, sometimes couldn't buy everything his children needed. Ryan explained that, while he couldn't solve all of these people's problems, he knew that small acts of kindness could make a big difference in their day. Mark was deeply moved by his words. Here was a young man earning a modest salary, doing everything he could to support others. It was a humbling moment for Mark, who had spent years building his business but had never considered the power of those small personal gestures that truly made a difference. The next day, Mark returned to the store again in disguise. He continued to work and talk to employees, learning more about Ryan's life. He discovered that Ryan had been through a lot. His father had passed away when he was a teenager, and since then he had worked multiple jobs to support his younger brother. He rarely took a day off even when he was sick. He was a good kid, but no one seemed to care for him. Mark was shocked. Ryan, who always appeared so cheerful and full of energy, was carrying a heavy burden. In the following days, Mark continued his routine in disguise, but something inside him had changed. He felt a deeper connection with his employees, an understanding that had previously seemed distant. What he had witnessed in his visit to the store wasn't just a simple act of kindness from a young cashier. It was a reflection of the people who truly sustained the success of his company. Ryan, with his genuine attitude and kind heart, represented something greater than just a good employee. He was the soul of Evans Mart, just like many other workers who went unnoticed but whose efforts were essential to the daily operation. Mark felt torn. He knew he had to make decisions to strengthen his company, focusing on profitability, expansion, and efficiency. But at the same time, he realized that what truly made Evans Mart a respected brand was the genuine relationship with customers, the way employees cared for one another and the community they served. These values were the heart of the business, and he couldn't let them slip away in the process of growth. Finally, after weeks disguised and learning more about his employees, Mark decided it was time to reveal his identity. He felt it was the right moment to do something meaningful for those who were the foundation of his company. On a Monday morning, he entered the store once again without his disguise, dressed in his executive attire. He went straight to the manager Joe and the team, who greeted him, initially surprised but not knowing who he truly was. Mark made sure to speak with everyone, calling them by name, talking to them about what motivated them and what could be improved. Ryan was at the counter as always, greeting customers with his contagious smile. When Mark approached him, Ryan's eyes widened in recognition. "Mike, is that you?" Ryan asked, visibly confused. Mark smiled, extending his hand. "Actually, my name is Mark Evans. I'm the founder of Evans Mart." There was a moment of silence. Ryan's face went from surprise to disbelief. You're saying you're the owner?" Mark nodded, still smiling. "Yes, it's me." "And you, Ryan, are the type of employee who makes all the difference in our company?" Ryan's reaction was a mixture of surprise and humility. He didn't know what to say, but Mark continued. "I've spent the last few weeks watching what you've been doing here. Your care for the customers, the way you help others, that's what I want to see in all my employees. That's what makes Evans Mart more than just a business. It makes it a community." Ryan, touched and speechless, simply looked at him with a look of gratitude. "I'm just trying to do what's right, sir." Mark felt a sense of pride, but also an urgent need to act. He knew that the culture of his company needed to reflect more of this spirit of solidarity and support. During the meeting with the managers and team leaders that morning, he announced a series of significant changes. From that moment on, Evans Mart would start investing more in its employees. The company would implement an emergency fund to help those in financial difficulty, recognition programs for acts of kindness like Ryan's, and a more inclusive culture where caring for others would be just as important as profits. Mark also made the decision to create a mentorship and care program, where employees like Ryan, who demonstrated great dedication and compassion, would have the opportunity to lead social responsibility initiatives, helping to strengthen the support network among colleagues. He believed that this kind of engagement would make a difference not only for employee morale but for customer loyalty as well, who would feel more connected to the company. When the meeting ended, Ryan was called aside by Mark. He looked nervous, but Mark smiled at him and said, "I want you to know that I'm very grateful for everything you've been doing. You are the reason Evans Mart is still growing, and I want you to feel valued. I want you to be a part of the change we're starting here." Ryan didn't know what to say, but his smile spoke for him. "Thank you, sir, that means a lot to me." Over the next few weeks, Mark noticed a remarkable shift in the dynamics of the company. Employees seemed more motivated, more willing to go above and beyond to help each other and the customers. The policy of mutual support began to create an atmosphere of trust that, surprisingly, reflected in improved sales. The stores started to stand out not just for the products they sold, but for the way they treated people. Something Mark knew could become a competitive edge in the marketplace. Mark's experience had a deeper impact than he could have imagined. It wasn't just a business strategy decision, but a transformation of how he saw his own responsibility as a leader. He knew that, in the end, his role wasn't just to run a company, but to create a space where people could grow and support each other. Mark would never forget the lesson he learned that day when he entered his own store in disguise and heard Ryan's words. Sometimes, the best ideas come from the most unexpected places, and from people whose voices are rarely heard but whose actions make all the difference. If you enjoyed this story of transformation and learning, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll not only stay up to date with more inspiring stories but also join a community that values growth and positive change. After all, each of us can be the difference the world needs, just by paying attention to the small things that make a big transformation. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. See you next time.